conversation. Uh-oh. What I would share is there is a place for an elevator pitch. I was at a conference last week called the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. I'm leaving my booth, walking to a hospitality suite, and someone ran to me in the hall I didn't know. So we have about 30 seconds while I'm walking to this escalator. The elevator pitch is perfectly fine for that, right? This is a real situation. And the student shared what they did, their major, where they went to school, why they were interested in Mortensen. That was fine, right? That allowed me to tell that person, hey, I'd like to see you tomorrow at the career fair. Come to the hospitality suite tonight. There's nothing wrong with that at all. That person had it buttoned down, what they had to, what they were looking for, what they had to potentially offer, and they had done some work to kind of understand our company. That's impressive. You don't always have to approach networking that way. I just want to make sure that it's known that that is okay to have your elevator pitch. But I would say on the contrary side, or on the flip side, if someone is meeting with me, I love it if I know what it is they're interested in talking about. And it's still authentic. I don't think it's inauthentic because someone's looking for something. They might be looking for advice. They may be looking just to get to know me. So I love it when someone is authentic and sharing what it is they're interested in connecting on, because it makes me show up better and be able to point folks in the right direction. The other thing I share is it's not one way. It's not just, come to me, I'm going to give you information, help you. I get something out of meeting other folks as well. So it's not transactional in either direction. Hopefully it starts with potentially that one interaction and builds into something bigger and it becomes a relationship.
One of the things that I feel like is the sometimes under leveraged potential of these relationships, and we're talking about networking a lot right now, I feel like in the professional context, right? But it can feed your personal life as well, right? Because the more you are sharing, the more you are listening, it can help you create friendships that you did not know were going to exist, right? Or just birth places of support that you did not know you were even looking for. And so, Joffrey, I feel like you are so good at this in terms of networking, not only for the professional aspect, but in building your network of support in your personal life as well and your friend circle. And can you talk a little bit about what is similar about those two approaches, and then what might be different about how you approach this?
Sorry, the two approaches. Keep telling me the two approaches.
So like networking for professional gain, and then building your friend circle, networking for just like personal connection and kind of social things.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I first started working, I thought that you're supposed to keep work and home completely separate. At work, I don't talk about what happened over the weekend, right? That shifted over time. COVID, I think it kind of led to home and work being merged very quickly, right? But I do approach conversations initially in my personal life sometimes different than professionally. So as I think about networking and how I'm engaging at Mortensen where I work, some of it is thinking about what's the culture that I'm operating in. Do you understand how decisions are made? Do you understand who has a voice? So networking in the workplace, it looks like if I'm trying to get to this particular decision with the organization, socialization before the decision date is actually coming. Making sure I'm getting feedback from people, iterating to come up with a better product, a better recommendation. So really within Mortensen where I work, the network that I'm thinking about as pertains to trying to drive an objective forward, is really understand the culture that you operate in, who are the players, who are the stakeholders in order to get to a decision. We're also a very consensus-driven organization, right? So it's not going to be, even though I may own this particular thing, I'm the only person that has a voice. So the advice I give you all from a professional standpoint is understand the culture in which you're operating so that you're not stepping out of bounds and doing things that aren't going to be productive for you. Outside of Mortensen in my personal life, it looks a little bit different. When I'm engaging someone, it starts off with some of the things that I'm interested in, some of the things that they may be interested in. If you're doing a good job of listening, you may find similar interests that you can build upon. And it may be that you don't have similar interests, but I listen to you, this is something you're interested in, you should go talk to this person. And if you listen to someone else, you can make that connection. So they look a little bit different, but I think that listening is a key component and understanding is a key component of both.
Yeah, the personal piece is interesting to me because I don't want to be outside, y'all. I be trying to And so I think where I can do better though, I think, trying to correlate those two for me, because I have kept them separate. But I think I'm still struggling there, to be honest. Like I'm trying to figure out like what is the correlation, because like even going out at my, and I'm not trying to be about age, but at my age, trying to find like, oh, I want more friends, but then I'm like, no, I need to pull back. So then it's like all these things I'm trying to just figure out how to balance, but I also know that they're super important. And so I guess I just, in my personal life, I just look at things as like, okay, is this a healing bond or is this a trauma bond? Are they gonna transfer trauma to me, or are they gonna actually help, heal into my personal life? Especially with all the things, I have going on. And so I always look at relationships like that outside of work, healing or trauma bonds. But then professionally, some people want to be my friend, and I'm like, no, we cannot take it outside of these doors. And I think that's okay to set a boundary. It is okay. I'm dead serious. Like you have to protect your energy and your time and know that like boundaries are okay. They are not avoided. They are protection. And so I think sometimes we try to say, "Oh, this person just avoided." No, I'm protecting myself. But in this space, I will work with you because that's my day job and I need my paycheck. So yes,
For sure.
Well, I think that this is really important here. You don't need to have a relationship with everyone.
no.
You don't need to network with everyone. Excuse me, I listened to this podcast, Jalen Rose, who was a professional basketball player. He went to Michigan as well. And he used to say that on this podcast, there's people that will come in your life that are going to add, subtract, multiply, divide. Do you know which person you're talking to? You can engage with someone and learn the fact that I don't need to spend more time with this person. And you may find someone you meet, I really want to get to know this person better. I enter a conversation assuming positive intent, but just know there's different types of people that are going to come into your life and you don't need to engage with everyone.
Yes.
My mom used to say, everyone that shows up ain't there to help. Some people are there to just spectate, which is fine, right? Like, I don't think you need like who's here not to help. But I think you just, again, boundaries.
Yeah.
Boundaries.
Yeah. And it's okay if a relationship does end up being transactional, right? It's like we're talking about it in terms of really wanting to invest in relationships and connection. And it's wonderful if something that starts out as transactional evolves and opens and blossoms into even maybe friendship, Bianca.
Yeah.
But it's also okay if it was just there for that one reason, right? I got to get from point A to point B, and so help me. And after they help me, I send them a thank you note. And maybe I send them some flowers, and then I'm on about my day, right? That's okay too, right? But I think our point here is you really want to be intentional and strategic about how you're approaching those relationships, and being mindful that they may show up in different forms, and every form is okay, right? No form is bad, but just being clear about what is the meaning of this relationship, how do I need to invest in it, and the ways in which it serves me, right? I want to spend some time talking about building relationships across boundaries and across difference, because a lot of us have to do that, right? Whether it's in the context of our jobs or even as we're thinking about building relationships or connections that are friendships or are more personal, right? There are a lot of opportunity for us to create deep connection with folks who are different from us. And I think for a lot of us, that may start in the workplace, right? When you are trying to drive something across the finish line or build alignment or build consensus for your idea, you may be starting with people who are very, very different from you. And so I'd love for us to spend some time just talking about how you approach that, how you've done that, and how it has worked for you. Jeffrey?
It's a really good question. I would say culturally across the country right now, perhaps the world, we live in a world where it is us versus them, in or out, right, wrong, left, right. That's just kind of the world that we live in. Some of the skill sets that, I wish we had more of, the ability to have civil discourse. We don't have as much of that right now. And I think that a challenging thing that exists is listen to things that only reinforce what you already believe. So there is need to find ways to connect with folks that have different points of view for sure. And what's interesting to me is that, and I'm stepping outside of the workplace here a little bit, I do think having networks in different places is really important. I have found that some of the places where I volunteer, folks have a common goal in mind and may have different views on a lot of different things. So those have been, in my personal life where I gravitate towards people with certain views or certain beliefs or certain lived experience because there's a common sense of belonging and understanding. Some of the volunteer opportunities that I've done, boards that I've been on, it's created opportunity for me people to have different experiences, different points of view, and I've tried to lean into that as well. That's not always easy in this world that we live in right now, but I think that investing in meeting people that have different experiences, different points of view is only going to make us better. And as long as your different view isn't impacting my humanity, then we can move forward, right? Now, if your different point of view is impacting my humanity or your view of my humanity, that's a little bit different. But outside of that, we can have a conversation, agree to disagree, and move forward. But I think it's important to make sure you're engaging with people that don't have the exact same view because you can grow in the process, you can teach in the process, you can learn as well. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, I'll add, I think you said that beautifully. But just getting to know people's, story, keeping an open mind, keeping an open heart, and not scrutinizing people for like where their walk of life is, because like I try not to play like oppression Olympics and stories. Like when I'm meeting with people, I'm like, no, I don't need you to have a better story. I just want to know what drives you. And so being able to really listen and understand what drives people, whether it's in the organization or personally, then that will help you be able to really connect with them and also serve them in a way if you understand what drives people. So I think that's really helpful.
One of the things that I love about this conversation and love about kind of relationship building is the opportunity to kind of put my network to work, to leverage my relationships for the good of others, right? It feels so good to make an introduction to someone that I know is going to serve them well. And that is really the value of building a network, right? It's not just about how many business cards you can collect and how many people around the Twin Cities know your name. It's really about how active you are in putting that network to work. And I would love for us, I think we could do a better job of that actually. And so I'd love for us to spend some time just talking about how do we do that? What are ways in which we can use our networks to lift each other up and create more opportunity?
Yeah.
Bianca, can you start?
Yeah, you were looking at me. I think first, I think you have to lean into it with grace and not assume that. I think a lot of people may assume that Minnesota Timberwolves, I might have $1 billion to work with. I don't. But I think just getting in connection, right, and not assuming that like this is what this person has, and if they don't give it to me, they just don't want to be part of it. That's not the case. Some of these relationships take time and persistency and consistency, and so one, just give grace. And also know that like I think we all have, competing priorities. So that's the first thing that I would say. I think secondly, just understanding that, no matter where we all sit, we all wanted to feel seen and feel trusted and feel heard. So just making sure that like that is at the center of everything that we're building. But yeah, grace and trust and making sure that we're all feeling seen and heard.
I think in order for your network to work for you, there's 3 key things that I think about. The first is, do you know yourself? Do you know what you deliver? Do you know what you have to offer? That's important, right? If I'm networking with someone in hopes of getting an opportunity at this level of the organization or this particular role, do you have self-awareness? I'd say a second part of the equation is, do you know where you want to go and can you articulate that? Right? Third part of the equation is your actual brand and reputation. So there's what do you know about yourself, but what do other people think about you? If you're going to have your network work for you, I think you need all those things in place. So I'm in position to help someone if they have a great reputation, they deliver on the things they're going to say, and they've articulated where they want to go, because now I can actually connect them to someone or open up a door myself. But without those 3 things being in place, I think it's important. I think it's hard for your network to actually go to work for you. So, doing some work to understand who you are, make sure you're managing your brand, be able to articulate where you want to go. Now your network can go out and find opportunities for you.
Can I add to that? That reflection around how your network sees you is like really important. I actually was able to leverage that just with a current professional situation, but being able to make sure you sit back and actually reflect. I think we're always so head down and so busy, but we don't always get that feedback. And I think it's like really, really important because the testimony is that I got, I was like, wow, you see me that way. And I didn't think of that. And so I think it's really powerful to also get that reassurance for yourself as well.
I want to add to that, because I didn't add the how you might know what your brand is and how you're perceived. I've sat in a performance review, and or it's not even an official performance review, it's a little bit of feedback. How am I doing? You're doing great, keep going. I can't really do anything with that. I can't amp anything up. I can't turn anything down. It's very, very general, right? On the flip side, you can take ownership of feedback discussions for the performance review process. And there's 3 prompts that I think about that can be really helpful. The first one is what's working, what's not working. Now I have to put tangible things on paper, and it gives me feedback that I can lean into. That's number 1. The second prompt that I've used in my career a lot is start, stop, continue. You can send an email to everyone you work with and ask the question, what should I start, stop, or continue doing? The third one, this one takes a little bit of work, and maybe your organization may need to support you in this endeavor, but a 360 survey, particularly if it's anonymous, that can be a really powerful way of understanding what are your attributes that are awesome, what are the things you need to work on, what are your strengths, what are your opportunities. But if you're operating in a space where you don't have clarity in terms of what's working, what's not working, that can be very, very frustrating and set yourself up for sometimes a negative surprise at the end of the year. So any one of those prompts can be useful in your personal life, in your professional life. You want to understand how you're being perceived by others.
Yes, yeah.
True.
I'm gonna share something that I did. I think what Joffrey just mentioned is so great, especially in the context of work, right? Where you're engaging with your manager or engaging with folks that work with you on a day-to-day. If you are someone that has, you're engaged in a lot of boards or volunteer opportunities, there's a way to get feedback from those folks as well. And I remember a couple years ago, I sent people that had engaged with me in a number of different ways an email that had 2 questions on it. And those 2 questions are, what would you pay me to do in a heartbeat? And what is something that you absolutely would not pay me to do? Right? And the feedback that I got was so helpful because it helped me to start to put language to some of the questions that Joffrey talked about, right? Knowing yourself, knowing where you want to go, knowing how others perceive you, your brand and reputation. Sometimes you might have an idea of yourself, and what you need from your network or from the people who have engaged with you is you need language to be able to articulate that to others. And so some of the questions that Joffrey just posed, or even the questions that I just posed, they can help you build a vocabulary of how to talk about yourself in a lot of these interactions. I just want to add that. I didn't want us to lose it. Okay. You know, there are a lot of missteps in networking, right? Or as you're building these relationships. Can we talk a little bit about what some advice you would give to folks to avoid some common missteps?
I think the biggest thing for me, I'm big on respect. I am big on trust. And when I'm first meeting someone, if you say you're going to do something and you do it, that means something to me. If you take my card and you say you're going to follow up, you follow up. That not everybody does. That means something. So a misstep for me is not taking advantage of someone trying to open up a door for you and doing what you say you're going to do. You've heard that theme from me a lot of times over the course of the day. When you call me and ask for help, if I have a relationship with you, I'm going to answer the phone and be there. But I expect the same thing returned. So anyhow, build a relationship, build in trust, doing what you say you're going to do. That's really important for me. And that's advice I give to folks. Take advantage. If someone has opened up the door, take advantage of it. Do what you say you're going to do.
Okay.
I think my biggest misstep was I used to confuse networking as oh, I gotta find the person with the biggest, most biggest title, right? And so for me, I was like, no, that actually didn't work because I got in rooms with some of these people with titles, and I was like, oh, I don't want to be right here, right? And so I think for me, it was important to network across, right? It might be a person who is okay, they're just one level up for me. That will help me have closer proximity to where I can go next. I think it's great to network with anybody, right? I'm not saying discriminate against titles, but sometimes I think we look at the face value of things and we get disappointed when it doesn't actually serve us. And so that was a big misstep for me.
What I'm hearing you say is the importance of networking with your peers,
Yeah.
right? A lot of times we can want to look upward in organizations. We want to look upward to the title, the person that has that brand recognition, right? It seems like they got it all figured out. But the people sitting next to you, the people who are figuring it out along with you, the people at your same level, those relationships can be just as valuable. So please don't forget to sow into those as well. Okay, we got about 10 minutes left in this conversation. I want to take a minute and see if there are any audience questions. I mean, I got questions for days, but we can,
One over here.
okay.
I have a question because I kind of want to just share while
No.
I don't know that I'm demo.
I think people online can't hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry about the online folks. Hey, my name's Arlene and we're with Ramsey County Employee Resource Group. And so, the flyer was sent to us and we wanted to network with other Black employee resource groups across the Twin Cities. We're actually trying to gather our Black employee resource groups to have, like, say, for instance, fun, like a sneaker ball. But obviously, whatever others get from it is what they get from it. So that's my sales pitch, number one. Number two, I just want to say to Joffrey, I'm excited to be here. My son just started working for Mortensen as an engineer 3 weeks ago. So I'm excited to be here to hear and to see who you were. But that's why I'm here. So that was my pitch. It wasn't a question, it was a pitch.
Oh, okay.
So if you're interested, y'all can see us.
Bring it out to a game.
Right, get my pitch
Yeah.
in real quick.
Bring the Ramsey County Employee Resource Group out to the game. Invite some other employee resource groups. That's why they're here.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Any other questions?
Hi, my name is Darren Hayes. The question I have for you is, can you talk a little bit about the challenges of networking as being a person of color in a predominantly non-color organization? Because we all are, unless we're working for ourselves, that's, we're all in those organizations where most of the people do not look like us. So can you speak to some of the challenges of that?
I think there's definite challenges with that. And in working in 3 predominantly white organizations over the course of my career, I would say that employee resource groups have played a critical role. Even before going into corporate America, I was at the University of Minnesota and I was sitting in the class, first term, and I'm one of very few people of color sitting in that room. And what happened in that class is there was a young lady and she invited me to come to the Black Student Union. So amongst thousands and thousands of people, she takes me to this place where I do see people that have a shared experience with me. And that became my circle for throughout my 4 years at the University of Minnesota. So the advice I'd give is, to find some places that feel safe, shared connections. For me, that happen to be employee resource groups. It doesn't have to be that necessarily. For some folks it's giving back, volunteerism, within an organization. Those are places that I've leaned in as well. But the kind of advice piece is find places that feel safe and comfortable as a starting point to build your network. And then you can branch out from there. But it is intimidating, or can be intimidating, when you're one of a few that's in an organization.
Yeah, that question is so triggering. I think for me at least, navigating spaces where I'm a minority, I had to realize to put myself around people who were in executive spaces that look like me. There's very few of us, but I only gravitated to the ones who understood the difference between comfort and care. I don't want you to comfort me, right? Because sometimes, I lead our ERGs and I find that the safe spaces don't retain them. It allows us to have space and talk about things that we find common. But for me, at least, I wanted someone to tell me like how to navigate that system. And I think we don't do that enough. We don't share the language enough of how to navigate. And so there has to be kind of this, and I hate to say it, but this kind of internal underground railroad. Like, it has to be, right? How are we navigating these spaces to get each other and more representation in these rooms? And it's exhausting. And it's a lot, and I think like we could be doing way better, a lot better. And we have a long way to go. But yeah, I find people in the organization, even if they don't look like me, that are at the executive table, that's gonna say, hey, I'm gonna speak of your work in this room, I'm gonna talk about what you do. And you have to have those people who are gonna continue to advocate for you too. Yeah.
One last thing I do want to add, I think allyship is an important thing as well. And not everyone that says they're an ally is an ally. Not everybody shows up the way they need to. There are also people that do lean in and show up the way they need to, but that can be helpful as well. Going to the organization, trying to learn the written and the unwritten rules and the culture, I talked about that a little bit before, is really important. Because that can kind of point you in the direction of how to operate. But I did want to mention allyship as well, because if you find someone, even if they're not part of your community, but they're interested in your success, that can be really powerful.
Last thing I'll say to this, and I agree, because like I always say, nice doesn't mean allyship. They could be nice to you and they're not gonna bring your name up in a room. I will say too, like for me, like I've been able to be successful by leaning on the community outside because they hold us accountable. There is so much power in leveraging the community, especially when you know, like we're in a space where like the community is, if they don't show, we're not gonna have a business. So it's like you have to be able to say, hey, this is what the community is going to think about us if we don't continue to lean into this space. And I can say this outwardly, like 5 years ago, I don't think the Timberwolves at least had a great name, right? But now, you know, under the leadership of True Pettigrew, and people that have came before me, we've been able to bridge some of that. We have a lot of work to do, but like our community was holding us accountable and we listened, and we have a lot more work to do as an organization, but we have to continue to see the power in that.
Any other questions? Okay.
Hi, I'm Michelle with Mooney Mooney Partners, and I am also a student at University of St. Thomas in their Masters of Diversity Leadership program. So when you were talking about keeping connections warm, you mentioned LinkedIn, and it kind of gave me this sense of, well, as a zillennial, I use the internet and how I communicate on there a little differently. So I wanted to get your perspectives on how you have noticed a generational difference or tendency in networking, what making connections and how each generation keeps them warm, and how do you bridge across that?
I'd say one of the challenges today, and I don't know if it's only generational or just culturally shifted here, folks expect response immediately or the impact they're looking for immediately. There are folks that will reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll just use that as an example because you open up the door there, that will ask me for something that I have no relationship with at all. So I can't tell you whether that's today because, you know, social media, the internet, just information, you know, it's all at your fingertips, and people expect relationships or networks to operate the same way. And in my opinion, they don't. So the advice I give is if you're engaging with someone on LinkedIn via email or otherwise, be patient in terms of what your ask is, and potentially wait to make any ask until you actually get to know someone. It's fine to share, you know, I'm interested in learning more about Morrison, interested in learning more about the construction industry. It's different to enter that conversation saying, I want a job. Those are two different things. You can build to the second piece. So anyhow, I think that timing is important. Thinking about patience as you're engaging someone, that's important as well in a society that wants everything instantaneously.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's so many like platforms that we can outside of LinkedIn that people reach out to me on. And so I'm managing Instagram, email, LinkedIn, and it's a lot, right? And I think patience is really important to have. But I think like to double click into your question, like how we keep, like I think holding us accountable too, because like I don't answer all of my LinkedIn messages just because I feel, you know, at times exhausted, but I could be doing a better job at that. So I do appreciate the question because I think holding the people, you know, that you reach out to accountable to.
We have an opportunity for like 2 more questions before we transition to the last one, and I think there was a question at the bottom. So, Darby, I know you talked about kind of different levels of interaction with people within your network. How do you frame networking? Eric and I were having a conversation around networking's good, but if you get laid off and need a job, how many people in your network can you really call? So how do you distinguish between a network of people and people in your network who can do something for you when you need it, and you can depend on them to do that for you, and they can depend on you to do that for them?
That's a really powerful question. So I do think that as it pertains to network, I do define things a little bit differently. What I would say is that there's my personal network, and I think about that in terms of people that know me inside of work, outside of work, kind of holistically. There's a professional network where people know me as Geoffrey Morrison only. And I do think they both can help you, Eric, if they know who you are. Those 3 things I was talking about are in place. But I think that the important thing is for your network to work for you, folks have to know what you're interested in. They have to listen to you. You have to communicate it. It requires investment, right? where I have a real relationship with someone, a really deep relationship with someone, maybe requires a little bit less investment because there's organic things that are happening. That professional network, I talked about setting up coffees and being very intentional about virtual or in person. It requires you to be checking in. What are you doing at work these days? What do you want to be doing in your next role? What are you interested in doing outside? So, one of the things for me is the investment that's required, being intentional versus some of it happened organically where I have a deep personal relationship. So I guess what I try and share is being very intentional in that professional network, investing in it. It's not going to happen as organically, but making sure that you can articulate what you're doing, where you want to go. And if someone's listening, it can open up doors later on that I don't even know exist, or doors that I'm not even looking for right now. But network before you need the particular opportunity is the advice I'd give.
I'm not on the panel, but I want to jump in on this one. Because one of the things that I use is like my emotional barometer, right? Like when I think about a need I have, if I feel like I can pick up my phone, shoot a text, shoot an email, and it doesn't cause me any heartburn, I have no feeling about it, that's how I know that I am reaching out to someone that is really a friend or a deep connection, right? Like that is my own internal barometer. If it feels easy, right? If I could say in a text to Joffrey, like, I need a job, right? That's how I know, and I don't have a feeling about it. That's how I know that this is someone in my network that I can communicate with in this way. If I feel like I have to pause, or if I'm like, let me go to ChatGPT to help me write the text or write the email, right? Like if I feel like it requires more effort and energy, that is my internal signal that there's something different about this relationship. There's something different about the person that I want to reach out to that is demanding a different level of interaction. And so maybe it means that, okay, for this person, perhaps I need to invite them to coffee first, right? As opposed to just immediately shooting off a text or shooting off an email, right? And so I think some of it is, it's not a hard and fast rule, but I think you should start to think about, like, for people that you have real deep comfort with, you interact with them differently, right? And then for the people that you feel like it requires a little more professionalism or a little more buttoned up, you interact with them differently. And so start to think about your network in that way too, especially when you have something very specific to ask for.
I would say too, making sure that you have a personal board of directors for yourself. So I have about 5 people who I can call on for anything. And I always remind myself, like, those are the people that, like, if tomorrow I wasn't at the Timberwolves, I can call on and say, hey, I need to rally up my troops, and they're gonna back me up and, help make sure I land somewhere. And so it's important to, like, look at your network too as, like, quality over quantity. Like, I don't need to have thousands of people, but, like, there's 5 solid people I know that are gonna ride for me when I need it. And, like, I literally can call or text, don't need to chat GPT or text them, and that my emotions are not all over the place. And even when they are going to welcome me. But those are the people that, like, you need to have that board of directors, and I stress that so, like, critically. And 5 might seem little, but it takes work, because you also have to have reciprocity with them too. And so just start building your board of directors. Who are the people that you want to be a part of your board of directors? And then they will help navigate. And I'm telling you, it's been a powerful thing for me.
Can I add one quick thing in here? I know we're close on time. I promise this will be really fast. We're not entitled as pertains to a network working for us. There are people I've created opportunities for that burn bridges very quickly. Right? I got someone a job at a particular place. They didn't do what they're supposed to do. They lasted 3 months and burned out. Now my reputation is impacted as well. So when I talk about investment in the network, it's not only the schedule of the meetings, it's also, your reputation and how you show up when someone opens up a door for you. So it's not an entitlement thing to me. I think you earn the ability for your network to work for you.
Great point. We have 5 minutes before we transition, but I want to be respectful to the chat group. So I'll have a question for you, but I have like 2 from the chat, and if we could do like just quick responses. So the person from the chat, incorporate when you find yourself as the only African American woman, how do you deal with imposter syndrome?
I love that question, because confidence isn't something that you just get and it's done. It's a daily mantra. We all know that. So honestly, on my way to work, I'm always listening to some Boosie or some Cardi B or something that's gonna hype me up. I'm really serious about that, because I really need to be hyped up a lot of times. But how do I navigate that? Like, I'm always telling myself, like, you belong here, or God would not have me here. And so I always remind myself that. So when I walk into these rooms, I'm like, God, use my voice, make sure I say something not brash, make sure I say something impactful. I'm always also in prayer. And I constantly do that. I mean, I'll be at my desk. I found myself closing my eyes at my desk the other day, and I was just like, oh my God, they think I'm asleep. But I was praying because I like sometimes you just need to be linked in, tuned in with yourself. And so I'm not saying it's easy, but you have to hype yourself up, hype others up,
Yeah.
hype the other women up that you see too every day, even if you're not feeling it yourself. Just be like, girl, I see you. I see you, and be real about that. Don't just say you're a girl's girl, be a girl's girl. And so that's how I see it. Like I'm always hyping people up, and I think sometimes they're like, why you always with them? Because they need that, right? And so I'm just always, that's what I do. So make sure you get you some hype music in the morning, but stay in prayer and, just keep pushing yourself because confidence, and imposter syndrome is not gonna go away, but you can get the noise quieter. You can get it quieter, you can get it smaller, and you can be able to get rid of it sooner.
Yeah, this is what I say, there's nothing about you that is an imposter. Okay, because there's nothing about being a Black woman in corporate spaces that is an imposter, okay? Because for those of us that have ascended to that level, you have done the work. You have been to the schools, you have collected the credentials. There's nothing about you that suggests that you should not be there, right? And so that is the thing that you have to remember. So if it's your Boosie or your Cardi B or whatever that helps you remember that, but know that like you got the receipts, okay? There's nothing about me that is faking where I am or where I deserve to be because I have done the work.
That part.
Great. Next question from the chat. I had experience when a supervisor that was big on career development that said, but she didn't connect me with people in network to network with and was dishonest about knowing people. But when I needed to be spoke up for to me, but do a work experience was a win for me. Knowing how to use the connection is in this case was key to me. I guess I was the same more than comment. You mentioned the strategic network builds influence. How can professionals use the influence while staying true to their community and values without being seen as less competent or less aligned in corporate spaces? Sounds a little bit kind of like the imposter syndrome conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, lean to the imposter syndrome that we were talking about. I'm going back to something that we talked about before, and actually lean on my kids a little bit in the back. They love basketball. The only way you're going to learn how to shoot is if you get shots up, right? So we talked earlier about if you know what's working, what's not working in the workplace, start, stop, continue. These are my strengths, these are my opportunities. If you know what you can work on it. Perception can be reality. So I'm going to shift the perception. If you think I don't understand this part of the business, you know what? I'm going to invest and spend some time with someone that knows more about that, right? That'll build confidence in you and reduce that sentiment of imposter syndrome that we can feel. So there were a couple of things going on in that question, Eric. I kind of leaned into the imposter syndrome portion, but does that answer kind of what you were getting at?
I think it does. If you can maybe answer the next.
Really quickly, I promise. I would say too, don't give too much power into an individual that's for your career development. Allow them to lean into it, but do not give too much power away.
Great, thank you. One more from chat, and then I'll take a question from the audience, and then we'll transition. Is there a different approach to when you're trying to get people in your network compared to when you're trying to sell something? So is building a network a sales pitch, or is it different, or is your approach different? Does anyone want to volunteer to take that?
I think that it starts with networking. You can go in different directions. Some people are looking for personal connection. Some people are looking for a job. There's career advice. I just moved to town. There's some folks that are looking to sell me something. I'm not always in buying mode necessarily. That's what makes LinkedIn, to your point before, a little bit harder. Because LinkedIn now, I feel like it's 80% someone trying to sell something versus someone trying to build a relationship. That's a whole different panel and conversation. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, Eric. I mean, I shared earlier that when I'm engaging with someone, I like to know kind of what type of conversation they're looking to have. It doesn't mean I'm necessarily interested in what they're trying to sell, but if I know what you're interested in doing, then I can react accordingly.
Thank you. We had one more.
Was there one more in the audience?
Right here.
Oh,
Test. Okay, awesome. Hi, good morning. My name is Sun, And one thing I wanted to ask is I heard you talking about allyship, and sometimes we think about allyship across like races, but I'm also thinking like subculture allyship of neurotypical, neurodivergent, able-bodied, all those things. And I wanted to know is I'd love to hear about a lesson you've learned from working with people who think differently and how you use that experience to build inclusion and understanding in your professional relationships.
That was a deep question. I know we only have a little bit of time. I'll try and be brief. What I'll share is I lead diversity, equity, inclusion in my company, and I do think that the term has been weaponized. It's been, pulled in a lot of different directions. People intuitively know what diversity is and various types of difference. You listed a couple a second ago. I think inclusion, people can wrap their heads around that. People want to be heard. Equity is where things get twisted up. And I'd say that where I've been the most successful is where I can explain to folks, equity is about everyone in this room. It's about everyone that's not in this room. I want everyone to have what they need in order to be successful and to be able to thrive. And when I can give tangible examples of that, then it resonates differently. So when I can talk about equity being on a construction site, we need our instructions in English and in Spanish, or we can't work safely. It's looking at pay equity gaps so that no one is being underpaid for the work that they're doing. When it's scholarships, to make sure that those that want to pursue education and potentially come to Mortensen, we're going to close that gap. So people get to assuming that equity is quotas and it's not merit-based, and there's all these rabbit holes that emerge. So where I've been the most successful is where I can take a pause and say, what is diversity, equity, inclusion? Why are we doing it? How does it connect to you? That's when I've been the most successful. The challenging thing is we don't always have a conversation. It just becomes this word or a headline, and we don't go any deeper than that. But when we can talk about what it actually is, why we're doing it, invest a little bit of time, then it becomes a positive thing for everyone.
Great, thank you. And Darrell, I'm going to recognize you for having a conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion, because I know that's kind of a hot topic and people aren't comfortable talking about it, but being able to stand and have a kind of a clear, concise definition of what the terms mean, how they impact us, and the value they bring more broadly. So I appreciate that. So and I appreciate everybody on the panel. Amazing job, great content from that. We do have a small token of appreciation for you guys as you walk off the stage.
Thank you.